G'day everyone, my name's Troy. I'm a Learning Delivery Specialist with Microsoft Australia, and I've got the amazing joy today of being able to introduce everybody to Mike Tholfsen, who is the Principal Program Manager for Microsoft Education in Redmond in the USA. Mike's going to talk to us today about OneNote's best practice for educators and students, and he's going to tell us all the great things that are happening with OneNote, but also some things that you need to keep in mind when you're using OneNote. So I'm going to throw over to Mike now, because that's why you're all here, and just say g'day to you, Mike. How are you?
Hey, Troy, thanks for having me on the show today. I work on the Microsoft Education team, as Troy mentioned, and we're going to talk a lot about OneNote. And I've also got this beautiful handcrafted OneNote logo that I put right on the country of Australia. And so today, we are going to talk about these four things. We'll start out just with a bunch of useful links. I get a lot of questions of, hey, Mike, what's the link for this? And hey, is there a site for that? So I'm going to cover a few of those things. And then we'll talk about best practices and good hygiene with OneNote. We'll also talk about some OneNote current and future updates, and then a couple of Class Notebook current and future updates. So hopefully there'll be lots of good stuff to cover. And then we'll have a bunch of Q&A at the end, and I'll answer some questions. So to start, high level, I always like to say this slide here, OneNote Education, that's the core foundation. Saving time, being more organized, and collaborating more effectively. And that's really the power, I think, of the digital binder in the education space. So a question and a resource that I get asked a lot, hey, Mike, there's different OneNote. There's a OneNote in the web. There's a OneNote for Mac. There's 2016. There's an iPad. What's the set of features and on what platform do they exist? Well, it turns out there's a great site that we have put together. The link is right here. I call it the OneNote Matrix. And it has a nice matrix of what features for education are on what platforms. So bookmark this, and we always update it or keep it up to date. And so when there's new features that come out, you can check that and know what features exist where. The other one is a good page to bookmark. I call it the OneNote Ultimate. It is all the different links around things like, where can I get help for OneNote? What are the different links that exist around the platforms? What could I embed into OneNote? What are the latest OneNote Windows 10 features that have come out? A whole set of links, blogs, videos, everything you want to know about OneNote Education on one link that we call OneNote Ultimate. The other one that's pretty new, and I've been talking about this one a lot because during distance learning, man, the quick tip videos are very popular. I never thought I'd become a YouTuber, but Troy, I'm now a YouTuber, which is kind of weird. So I have my own YouTube channel, and all I put out on the YouTube channel are 1 to 2 minute quick tip videos. To really short and sweet, get up and running, learn something new without committing an hour of your time. And I even have a nice little playlist in that YouTube channel all about OneNote quick tips. So the main channel's here, and I encourage people to go subscribe, hit the little bell so you can get the latest updates. I try to put out a video about every day, 1 video a day. But there's a whole OneNote playlist, and I'll be adding things to that too. So definitely check that out if you have a chance. So given that we're in a pandemic and given we're all doing distance learning, what better metaphor than good hygiene? And we're going to talk about some best practices in OneNote and some things that you can do to, again, this is where the hygiene comes into play. It's not only helping for your own benefit and your own class's benefit, it actually helps people around you too, because the better you are with OneNote, the better other teachers around you will experience their OneNote as well. So first off, and this is something that is not 100% known. I know I talk to people every day who didn't know. Probably 5 months ago, we announced that OneNote 2016 and OneNote Desktop in general is not going away. So yes, I know we announced it was going away maybe a year and a half ago, but based on a lot of customer feedback and a lot of enterprise feedback as well as education feedback, the idea was, hey, there are a lot of people who really like OneNote Desktop and they don't want it to go away. And so the OneNote team listened, very customer focused, and they said, okay, you know what? We will modernize the desktop OneNote and we are going to make sure it doesn't go away. So it's not out yet, but very soon we'll be launching a sort of a resurrected version of OneNote 2016. But then later in fall and into 2021, we're going to be adding things into that OneNote desktop, and it won't be called OneNote 2016 forever. Yeah, it'll be modernized and part of the Office install, just like all the other Office desktop apps. But we'll be adding Modern Sync into the desktop. We'll be adding the modern math assistant tools. Actually, that's something that Windows 10 has a lot of cool math tools. We're going to be bringing a lot of those into the desktop. So the math solver, the graphing, immersive reader for math. We'll bring dictation natively into the OneNote desktop. So you no longer have to have the old learning tools add-in. You'll have a built-in dictation, built-in immersive reader. Ultimately, we'll build those class notebook tools right in, so you have your own toolbar. And then we're also ultimately going to bring in OneNote Live Captions, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And those are all, again, not all at once. That'll take late into this year and into 2021 as we add all these things, but it's not going away. So in the meantime, and especially in Australia, there are a lot of OneNote 2016 users. It's well loved down under, which is great. Now, we just had a blog that came out probably, not even a week ago. And we made some updates to the OneNote 2016 build. And there's some very specific instructions on how to update. Not everyone can run that update, but if you are a click-to-run user and your district or your school is on what we call the current channel or the semi-annual channel, that's where you don't have an MSI or a DVD to install, you actually are on those regular updates, you can go and basically go click update now and get an updated version of OneNote that has some good performance improvements and some bug fixes and some things that will make the hygiene of your OneNote in Office work a little bit better against SharePoint in the cloud. And so we want to make sure that people do go and update that build. I even made a quick tip video, like right here. Takes all of about 1 minute to do. That's in this deck. This deck will be publicly posted, and it's also in my quick tip channel. So if you go to the blog, there's like 4 steps. If you're a visual and a video learner, there's a 1 to 2 minute video to watch. It's pretty straightforward, but that will get you on the latest and greatest performance and improvements around OneNote 2016. And related to that, what we also did, we updated the desktop class notebook add-in. So if you're using OneNote 2016 and you're using the class notebook add-in, then in that same blog, we documented how to update your add-in. You probably got prompted already, but if you're like me, a lot of those people are like, oh, remind me about that later, don't do it right now. But we want to encourage people to put the latest version of that add-in on there. And one of the reasons is, now I'm sure that Troy would never do something like this, but I've heard there are some other people in the world who sometimes, and we'll talk a little more about this, put really giant attachments onto a OneNote page and then try to distribute. If I put a 100 megabyte attachment onto a OneNote page and then I try to distribute that page to 50 students, that's a bad hygiene habit, for example. We don't, OneNote was not designed to put really giant files into and then try to distribute those files. And so we would encourage you to put that as a link or a shortcut, or maybe embed that into SharePoint. And so what we do with this updated add-in is if you put really big files into OneNote and try to distribute them, the add-in will actually say, hey, why don't you instead make a smaller page and put that into attachment or a link, make that such that you're not trying to distribute a really giant file out there. There's also a couple of bug fixes and improvements in that add-in as well. And that's another one where we're trying to encourage people to get on the latest update of the add-in as well. And that will help with some of those habits where, if you've been doing that a long time, it might be easy to say, I'm just going to dump a really big file into OneNote and push that out. But that can clog up your network at your school. And those are things where, you might think it's okay, but the teacher next door might be saying, wow, someone's trying to distribute a really giant file in OneNote and it's clogging up all that network traffic at our school. And so we want to ensure that that gets blocked if it's a really big file. And so as an example for best practices in hygiene, we have an article that we put out and the link is right here. But here's some examples. Inserted links to really big files. So if you've got a really put a link and give that link to people in OneNote. They don't need to get the entire copy of that giant file necessarily. Really easy to link to that. And like I mentioned, embedding really large files, that's something that we would encourage you not to do. It's fine to make smaller files in there, and we know that some people print to PowerPoint decks in some cases, but there's also cases where there could be really big files that we would say avoid embedding really big files. And I mentioned about distributing pages with large attachments. Now, the other one could be putting things in the content library. It might be that you put that content library file in there and people can reference it, but they don't all need copies of that themselves. And that can be just a case of saving storage for yourself for really big class notebooks and just having people go reference that file in the content library. And the last one, audio and video recordings, especially in OneNote 2016, where if you are always recording really big audio and video files, again, that takes up a lot of space on your computer. That can take up space in your OneDrive, and that can also be something that we encourage you to be more efficient. So leaving really long video recordings in your OneNote, that's something that can take up a lot of space, and we would ask that people consider making smaller ones. And it's up to you, but again, we are encouraging really good hygiene practices, and that's another one where that can be unhygienic to the broader good of your bandwidth and the servers that you're using. So that's a summary of these hygiene tips and some of the updates we encourage. Now, next up, I'm going to talk through a set of OneNote updates, current and future, that you might not be aware of, and I want to make sure people are aware. So first off, equation tools for OneNote and Windows 10. We just launched, and it's fully rolled out now, a bunch of really rich math tools. And I see my buddy Steve is on this call later, Steve Crapnell, and he's going to probably ask me some math questions. And so I'm here to say that OneNote for Math in Windows 10 just got a bit better. This is fully rolled out. We had rich equation tools in OneNote 2016. They're now added in OneNote for Windows 10. And so that is on the Insert tab, and there's an equation button right here you can see, and that's fully rolled out. We have some new stickers that we added, Southeast Asian animals and the Fruit Crew. That's just kind of fun, but it's nice to know that we're always adding new stickers out there, and so those are available today already. The other one that we announced that's going to be coming soon, a lot of iPad users out there, we're adding a lot of those same Math Solver and Math Assistant tools into OneNote for iPad, as well as the Immersive Reader. And you can see an example here where the Math tab is open, and this is going to be great for those younger learners who might be using an iPad. So that's going to be coming out later this summer. A lot of these math tools on OneNote for iPad. So what's coming soon later this spring, one of my favorite new features is OneNote Live Captions. We announced this at the BET conference in January, and we're getting very close to a public beta in the OneNote web version in late spring. So how does this work? So we start out with Microsoft Trans. So this is a free tool on iPhone, Android, as well as a web browser. And imagine we're going to have teacher Troy is the teacher or the professor, and he starts a translator session. So I'll do this demo here. So Tier Troy generates a translator session and a join code right here, this 5-digit join code. Now student Mike would switch to OneNote for the web and click Live Captions, a new button. And he puts in this 5-digit code right here. Student Mike is now going to click English to start, and he clicks Join. So as Teacher Troy is talking, everything he's saying is captioning on the right-hand side. Now student Mike is still over here in OneNote, and he can take notes while Teacher Troy is talking in OneNote. So everything is captioned. Now let's say Teacher Troy said something important. Mike clicks that pause button to pause the caption stream for Teacher Troy. Now student Mike goes, he highlights some important concepts. Oh, this is going to be on the test. Oh, I need to make sure I capture this. In the meantime, while Mike is highlighting and making the text bigger, Teacher Troy was still talking. So everything Teacher Troy says is being buffered up. So when Mike clicks play, note how everything catches up automatically. Now, because we're inside of OneNote, everything that was said, we auto-generate this transcript section over here. And there's a page created for every session that Teacher Troy is doing. So it's automatically captured in OneNote. So when Teacher Troy is talking in English now, everything that student Mike sees is in Japanese, and that's automatically saved into OneNote just like before. We can have multiple students getting multiple translations into their OneNote in their language automatically. So think about not only students that don't speak English, think about dyslexic students. So this is coming out in late spring, probably in June, early June, hopefully, in OneNote for Web first in private beta, and we hope to roll out broadly by August or September in all the other OneNote clients. So that's going to be coming very soon. Another great inclusive feature in OneNote. So next up, we'll do class notebook updates. And there's a set that have rolled out recently and some things that are coming soon. So OneNote Class Notebook, hopefully most people know what that is, a framework for teaching and learning. We have the educator, we have the class notebook that has a collaboration space, content library, student notebooks. I'm not going to do a big review here. Hopefully people know what this is, and we'll be having some updates. So first off, if you didn't know that we already rolled out bulk delete a page is out already. So if you want to bulk delete a distributed page, that will work today in OneNote for Windows 10, OneNote for Web, the Mac, the iPad. That's fully rolled out and available today. And that was a #1 request for the class notebook. We also have the ability to distribute a section into a section group on the Windows 10 app. And I think actually Steve asked me about this one a couple months ago. So Steve, in case you didn't know, that is fully out. So if you have a section group that's nested and you want to distribute a page into it deeply, just like you can on 2016, that is now supported in Windows 10, Web, iPad, and Mac. So we're really trying to bring parity across all those class notebook features. That's rolled out too. Distributing a page from a to a non-EDU notebook. So that might be, I have a master curriculum notebook, it's a regular notebook, and I want to take a page and push it to a bunch of my class notebook locations. That is not possible. So again, you could do that with 2016, but you couldn't with the other apps. This is now fully out for Windows 10, Web, iPad, and Mac. So that rolled out. This is a small one, but it's kind of a nice one. If I'm in a class notebook and I go to the Manage Notebook page and into the right notebook for Manage Notebooks. It's not a huge one, but it's a nice little time saver, and that was a request that we'd had, so that is fully out and shipped across all the different apps as well. Turnitin integration, so if you use Microsoft Teams and you have Turnitin.com with your school, for years people ask, hey, can I get plagiarism checking when I use OneNote pages? Well, if you use Microsoft Teams in the assignments tool and you have Turnitin, that will happen automatically. So if I make a OneNote page as an assignment and I use Turnitin, well, when I turn that page in, it will automatically get checked at Turnitin.com, and that's fully out and shipped. So for the Teams users out there, that's a great one. And the other one, not everyone knows this, I'll make sure they know, when you set up a new class notebook in Teams, we allow you to pull from existing content. So if you have an existing content library set of content or existing teacher only section and you want to pull stuff into, you can pre-populate a lot of that content right when you're setting up the notebook. So that has fully shipped and is available today. So again, when you set up a class notebook, you say from existing notebook content, you go through the wizard, and you can pick those pieces right there and pre-populate. And lastly, this week, probably in like 4 or 5 days, if you use Microsoft Teams and you make an assignment, previously you could not distribute a page into a nested section group or any type of section group. Well, we finally got this up and running. This is coming very soon. So if I've got a nested section group or a set of section groups in my student notebooks, I can now, within 3 or 4 days, distribute a page directly in there. You can see this here. It's nested. We allow the drill down. Very excited about that one. That's been a top request. That's coming very soon. And then later in a couple of months, this is also in OneNote assignments. If you go to new file, making an assignment type, you can create a new Word document, a new Excel, or a PowerPoint. You have not been able to create a new class notebook page from that new file experience. That is coming just in a couple of months too. So by the time that, at least in the Western world, students go back to school, I don't know what that counts in Australia, sometime in Australia or in August or early September, you'll have that feature rolling out. So that's something to look forward to. We're trying to bring all the parity from assignments and class notebooks together in the team's assignment experience. And then lastly, this is a bummer, and I don't have the updated date, but due to COVID-19 and some of the changes that we've had to make on the engineering side, we've had to delay the save a copy. So that was supposed to roll out probably by now, but that one is delayed. I'm hoping we can get to it in the fall timeframe. I don't have a date right now. I'm just saying that it had to get delayed. I blame the virus. You can blame a lot of things on the virus these days, but that one unfortunately got delayed, and we're going to hopefully get it out a little bit later this year. So before we get to the Q&A portion of the webinar, all these links I talked about, take a picture. If you're one of those people who likes to take pictures, this whole webinar, this whole deck will also be posted publicly. There's nothing top secret in here, so you can tell people about it, you can tweet about it, you can share it with your friends, and that is right here. So the deck is public, it's right here, and email, Twitter, my YouTube channel, like I said, my latest and greatest social media endeavor is this YouTube Quick Tips video channel. So all that stuff is fully available. And with that, I'm going to start talking with Troy and some of my teacher pals about the latest and greatest OneNote questions they have. So let's go to the Q&A portion.
Okay, very good. All right, Mike, just letting you know, I'm going to throw you onto the screen now, so it's you and not your shared slides. First question actually going to come from me, Mike, because I just wanted to sort of personalize this a little bit, you know, because I know a lot of people follow you on Twitter, and I think you've got 20-something thousand people following you on Twitter, which is amazing. So I'm sure a lot of people will have, you know, questions about you and your role. So my first question is, what does your role entail as a principal program manager for, you know, for OneNote and for Microsoft Education? So what does that actually mean that you do in your day-to-day?
Sure. So in my job, it's really a mix of a few things. I do like the ultimate description of my job could be to talk with lots of different customers and understand the pain points and the challenges they're experiencing, and then go back with the engineering and design team and figure out what do we need to build, or how do we need to build this, or how can we solve this problem, and then iterate with the product team and engineering and design to help come up with the right features or products or solutions. And that's kind of the simplified view. So I work a lot with the engineering team, I work with the design team, and I work with customers. And then ultimately stitching all those things together and actually ship that out to customers is also kind of part of the job. So there's lots of different pieces of that. Every day is a little bit different, but it's really that end-to-end, taking the customer challenges and pain points and then building the thing and then getting it out to customers.
Wonderful, thanks for that. My next question.
I should also add really quick, Troy, I would add, I do both OneNote education work. I also do a lot with what we call the inclusive classroom and Microsoft learning tools. So things like Immersive Reader. I work a lot with other groups around the company to coordinate our all-up accessibility and inclusive classroom efforts. And so that's another big part of what I do, as well as the OneNote education pieces.
Excellent, very good. My second question for you is, how did you end up where you are today? What was your journey to where you are today? Did you come from an education background? Did you come from an IT background? How did you end up where you are?
Yeah, it's kind of in a roundabout way. I've been at Microsoft my entire career, which is coming up on 25 years in a month or two, which is quite crazy. So I started in engineering. I did not start in product management and program management. And so I worked in engineering for many years, and I was a manager in engineering. I moved to the OneNote team in engineering back in 2004. And back then, because we were working on a bunch of brand new technologies in OneNote that had not shipped yet, at one point I just kind of, I can barely remember what triggered it, but the idea of OneNote being a very transformational education tool was something that I started to get very passionate about. And so I started working on the side with lots of different educators and exploring and experimenting a lot of, I used to call it OneNote Next Gen Learning. And so I did a lot with that from 2004 till 2010 in various capacities. And it wasn't my day job, it was sort of a side passion project. And I did a bunch of stuff. I worked with a bunch of schools around the world at that time. And actually Australia was a early forerunner. Australia was always very pedagogically advanced. So were parts of Norway at the time and a few other countries. But then I left the OneNote team for a few years and worked on SharePoint and a few other back to the OneNote team as a product manager or program manager. And that's when myself and a couple other people inside of the company started working on Class Notebook. And then ultimately I started working on OneNote and Education with Class Notebook. And then we formed this new education team officially, I think in 2015 or 16. And I moved over to the education team and did a mix of OneNote Education as well as the hackathon, which turned into the immersive reader and all those other things. And so I've been on the OneNote Education team as a product manager since 2015, I think, at that point. So that's the sort of the long and winding path.
Excellent, brilliant. All right, so Mike, I've got three really quite excited teachers that wanted to ask you questions. I've got Diana, I've got Angus, and I've got Steve, and I'm going to invite them to come off mute. First Diana, then Angus, then Steve, one at a time, and shoot their questions at you. You let me know if you want to share your screen, if you're wanting to demo anything at any point. Otherwise, we'll just leave it as is. So I'm going to invite Diana off now, and she's going to fire a question.
Hey, Diana Murusay. I'm from Turnitin International College in Melbourne, just outside of Melbourne in Geelong, and we've found that OneNote has been our lifeline through the virus in connecting with our students, and we're about to head into a new semester at the end of June, and a lot of teachers are planning new units, and we're looking at some of strategies of the best ways to move content from a previously used workbook, perhaps from another teacher, to start a new class notebook for the new semester.
Yeah, so I think one of the great ways is, well, there's two ways. If you're using Teams, there's a really nice way, which is the import content from existing notebooks, where you can actually, when you're setting up your new class notebook, you can use the import feature that pulls content from old content libraries or old teacher-only sections, and you can pre-populate your notebook. If you're a standalone class notebook, we also have something that's not as well known. It's called the teacher transfer tool, that allows you to take an existing class notebook and move everything into a brand new teacher's notebook. And so if you've never heard of or seen the teacher transfer tool, use your favorite search engine and search up a class notebook teacher transfer. And so that can allow you to do that as well if you're standalone.
Fantastic. That is a new one for us. So I'll be looking forward to looking that up. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, Angus, do you have a question for Mike?
Yeah, look, we've just started using OneNote an awful lot recently with COVID-19, and I've got a question from my staff is, how can we efficiently review student work through OneNote once they've done it?
Yeah, so we have, in the class notebook toolbar, are you using standalone OneNote or OneNote inside of Teams?
We're using OneNote inside of Teams.
Yeah, and that actually makes it even easier. So in Teams, when you make an assignment and you distribute that content, in Teams, there's the whole assignment speed grader is what it's called. And going through the speed grader, you can review that student work, and it can be Word, it can be PowerPoint, or it can be OneNote. And so that's probably the easiest way to keep it consistent, is doing that. Now, if you're using inking, then we usually recommend things like the OneNote Class Notebook, where it could be in the desktop or in Windows 10, which are much more designed for inking. Inside of Teams, the web speed grader is not optimized for ink, because inking in the web is not as powerful as natively inside of OneNote. So if it's an inking assignment, I might say use the review student work inside of Windows 10 or desktop. If you're just using non-inking, then just doing it right inside of the Teams speed grader is easiest.
Excellent, thanks for that. Steve, you got a question for Mike?
Good morning, Mike. How are you? Steve Crapnell here from Hellos in Brisbane, Queensland. You nailed actually most of my questions through your presentation, so that was good. Really keen and to hear that the maths tools are coming to OneNote 2016. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Will it also include the generator quiz option? You know, the self cognition for the girls at the end of that. They've checked the solution and they can auto. That's a great tool. Is it coming to 2016?
It will, yes. It'll probably be, I would guess, more in early 2021. But yeah, we would plan on bringing almost all those math features across. I mean, and ultimately we want to bring a lot of those math features to the Mac as well, but we'll get them to 2016 and the OneNote desktop moving forward in general. So yeah, it will come. I don't have a hard date, but I would guess definitely in 2021, hopefully in early 2021.
Brilliant. One I got from a teachers, because we're trying to exercise the good hygiene, is when they copy text from images, when they do it in OneNote 2016, they can immediately copy the text from that image. Yet with Windows 10, they find there's a delay when they've inserted the image and they've got to copy the text. Any clues, tips, workarounds in that situation, or is it just let it be and let it sink?
Well, yeah, and there's actually kind of a two-part answer. In general, and this is just a difference and it's unfortunate, OneNote 2016, we install all of the OCR or optical character recognition components on the machine locally. So we actually install all of that locally, which means it's instantly there. With OneNote Windows 10 and the web, it uses a service. And that means it has to go to a service, and sometimes that service you have to wait in line, so to speak. Whereas with OneNote 2016, it's installed on your actual machine. So it takes up a lot more space, but it's there built in. And that's the reason why with OneNote for Windows 10, it can take a little bit longer sometimes than just a few seconds like it does with 2016, if that makes sense. And that's just the sort of architectural trade-off that was made.
That's
we're hoping to work on that and speed it up in the future, but right now it can be slower.
Cool. And just one more from me. Just listening to your live captions capture in OneNote earlier, sounds fabulous. Will that captured be searchable? Like the student goes back later, like in Stream, you know, the transcript in Stream, they can search, they can type in a key phrase, search it and get to that point of the conversation. Same feature in the transcript there?
Yeah, it'll just be the entire text. So yeah, OneNote
really?
searches to just go and find anything.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, thanks, Troy. That's got me happy.
And by the way, I'll throw in, and if you wanted to use the immersive reader on that transcript, you could do that too.
Oh, brilliant.
That sounds
Awesome.
brilliant. All right, Diana, you've got another question for Mike.
Yeah, I sure do. We're using the distribute a lot at the moment for assessments of campus, and then we lock down the pages. One of the things that seems to be missing is releasing and having that scheduled. Is there any way that we can schedule the release of a page to students so that it goes at a certain time?
Yeah, if you use Microsoft Teams, then if you use the assignments component, they actually have a scheduled distribute assignment. And so that's one of the benefits when you use Teams along with Class Notebooks, which we think is the best experience. You get the ability to schedule when that goes out. So in Teams, you can say schedule this for Monday morning at 8 a.m. and then it'll time that release.
Great.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Diana. Angus, you got another question? And Angus,
Yeah,
maybe you want to
do.
introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I'm actually based in regional Victoria, and my school has all ages you can think of, if they're between grades 5 years old and 18. And we also have all abilities. So we have a specialist centre as part of our school. And so I've got a question here, which is actually really important to us. So we know how to use Immersive Reader, and we know how to use Dictate, but we're wondering how we can use the two together. So when a child's actually dictating, they can see what they've said nice and clearly.
Yeah, well, I think the idea would be if you can use dictation in OneNote and it'll dictate it right there on the screen, and then you just hit Immersive Reader and the entire big. You can make the text bigger or smaller, do all the things with the immersive reader. Unless I'm misunderstanding, because the dictation is built in, and then you can hit immersive reader and do whatever you need to do with that on top of the dictated text.
Excellent, great. Angus, do you have another question?
Yes, this one's a little more basic. Just how can we merge cells in OneNote in a OneNote table? Is that possible?
That's not possible, no. And I'm going to be honest, it won't be for a long time. Just because there's a lot of other things that we're working on right now. Cell table merge, I wouldn't expect that one for a while.
Okay, great.
And yep.
No, go on, Angus, one more question.
Oh, yeah, sorry. There's one more. I've got staff wanting with setting assignments for kids where they want to make a portfolio and take photos of their work. What's the best way do you recommend to insert photos into OneNote?
Well, we have the ability to do, if you want to take a picture directly with your camera on the laptop, I think both OneNote for Windows 10 and OneNote in the web have the ability to say, take a picture and directly from the camera. The other way is you can just screen clip any photo and just paste it into the web. So my favorite my favorite shortcut is Windows Shift key S. And that puts the screen into screen clipping mode. And so you can just Windows key Shift S, drag the square, and just paste it right into OneNote. It's super fast. I use that one all the time.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so Mike, what we're going to do now is I just want to make sure that everyone understands in this webinar that we're going to make sure all the links that you've put in there have been posted into the Q&A. We'll make sure that people get those as announcements, and also we'll make sure that we share all the links that you've shared around accessing the slides, etc. We do also want to make sure that people understand that they can access our Microsoft Australia remote learning resources, which is right there on the screen for you now, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. And if you do want to get the recording for today, you can access that at aka.ms/TroyYT. Mike, I took a leaf out of your book and I have been compiling my webinars into a YouTube channel as well, which has been a lot of fun. So yeah. All right, guys, so I'm going to hand back just quickly to Mike to say goodbye, because we've really enjoyed having him here today. And then yeah, if you've got Q&A, please keep it going in the Q&A, in the Q&A button there. But Mike, over to you to say goodbye, and then we'll end for today.
Great. Well, thanks for having me on the show today. This is really fun, and hopefully we can get lots of this information out there. I know there's a lot of demand for knowledge, especially during distance learning, and people are hungry for information, and hopefully this will help in that quest.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Mike, and we really appreciate your time, and hope you had a good visit to us down under, even if it was virtual.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been I'm still sad because I was supposed to go down there for real in March, but it turns out March was like the worst time in history to travel. So we'll have to do that in a future year, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Thanks very much, Mike. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.